Prophet ﷺ was asked about the plague, and Allah's Messenger ﷺ informed her, saying that plague was a punishment which Allah used to send on whom He wished, but Allah Ta'ala made it a blessing for the believers. Reason it's a blessing for the believer is just like everything is a blessing for the believer. If difficulties come upon us and we make sabr, then that's a blessing. Difficulties come on all sorts of people. I don't think there's any human being who doesn't have any difficulty whatsoever, right? Unless they just pass it off as no difficulty, relatively speaking. Otherwise, difficulties are there, and even with relative ease, some people may consider that to be difficulty. So difficulty, in some sense, is a relative term. But then some things are difficulties compared, according to everybody. In this case, though, he's saying that the Prophet ﷺ said it's a punishment for others, but a blessing for the believers, because as I said, that anything can be a blessing because it's the way you react to it. And Islam tells us how to react, that if a difficulty comes upon you, then be patient, and that will literally just start shooting you up in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your maratib and in your levels. It's a very difficult thing to do, especially the more difficult the issue is. It's that much more difficult to just be patient and deal with it. Sometimes some people can naturally have a lot of resolve to do that, while others, they need to learn it. Some people resort to it after becoming hysterical, and then once they figure out that, hey, nothing's going to happen, I can't really help myself like this, then they eventually resort to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas the hadith actually mentions that it's إِنَّمَا الصَّبْرُ عِنْدَ الصَّدْمَةِ الْأُولَى, that the true sabr and patience is only is when it's at the initial status. So because you're so programmed and trained to be patient and not even complain in the beginning. That's why once, I think it was Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah, who was, his son had passed away, he was seen on the day of his death very composed, and somebody asked him, why do we see you very composed? He said, well, I'm doing what you guys will do after 3 days. You will become hysterical and you will panic, and you will have you will display your anguish for 2-3 days, and then eventually when you realize that nothing's going to come from that, then you then compose yourself. So I'm just composing myself from before. Then the hadith mentions that none among the believers remain patient in a land in which plague has broken out, and consider that nothing will befall him except that Allah Ta'ala has ordained it for him, but that Allah will grant him a reward similar to that of a martyr. So it's telling us how to do this. It is telling us how to respond to this. So, we try our best, but we have to keep in mind that only what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for us will happen. Even if we say in a place that's infested, afflicted,